Hello, my name is Asher Vance. I'm 24, and I pour concrete for a living on a massive bridge project leading into an industrial park in Ohio. The site's a steel beams stretching across the river like ribs cranes, swinging overhead, the constant roar of mixers and generators. I've been at the game for 5 years now, ever since I dropped out of community college and realized I was better with my hands than textbooks. My body's built from it, broad shoulders, arms corded from hauling rebar and vibrating wet concrete smooth. I don't talk much on the job. Words get lost in the noise anyway, but the guys know if they're in a bind, I'll have their back. No questions. I rent a small trailer just outside town, the kind with thin walls and a leaky faucet I keep meaning to fix. Mornings start at 4:30 a.m. Black coffee, peanut butter sandwich drive my old Ford pickup to the site. It's routine predictable. The kind of life where nothing much changes, and that's how I liked it. Until that day. It was one of those windy afternoons where the air felt wrong, heavy with the threat of a storm rolling in from the lake. Dust kicked up everywhere, stinging eyes and coating throats. I was up on the third level beam pouring concrete into the forms, the vibrator humming in my grip as I smoothed it out. Sweat soaked my shirt despite the chill mixing with the gray sludge splattered on my boots. The crew was scattered, some welding below others, shouting measurements. That's when I heard it, a low groan like metal protesting too much weight. I glanced left. The scaffolding on the adjacent section was swaying, bolts shearing under the gusts. And standing right in the middle of it, clipboard in hand, measuring the beam tilt, was Raina Hollis. Everyone knew Raina. 38 years old project supervisor, with a reputation that preceded her like steel wrapped in ice. She'd been in construction forever, climbing ranks in a world full of men who didn't make it easy. Whispers around the site called her untouchable, unbreakable. Nothing shakes Hollis, they'd say. She dressed practical hard hat safety vest over a fitted shirt, boots that had seen more sights than most of us combined. Dark hair pulled back, tight eyes sharp enough to cut through bullshit. We'd exchanged maybe 10 words total in months, mostly her barking orders, me nodding. But there she was, oblivious to the danger as the wind whipped harder. The scaffold snapped. A whole section tore free with a screech that cut through the noise like a blade. Cables whipped loose, panels crashing down. Raina turned just as it gave way beneath her. I didn't think. Dropped the vibrator hose, concrete spilling everywhere, and bolted across the beam. The gap between us was maybe 15 feet, but adrenaline made it nothing. I leaped the safety rail, boots slamming steel, and reached her as the platform buckled. My arm hooked her waist, yanking her back hard. She gasped, clipboard flying as we tumbled backward onto the solid beam. The scaffold plummeted past us, smashing into the deck below with a thunderous crash, twisted metal and dust exploding upward like a bomb. We hit the concrete hard, her body slamming into mine. I took most of the impact, shoulder screaming, but I held her tight. Dust choked the air, thick and gray, blinding everything. Sirens wailed from the ground crew already. Her face was inches from mine, wide eyes, breath ragged against my neck. I could feel her heart pounding through her vest, matching my own hammer in my chest. For a second, the world narrowed to that, her weight on me, the heat of her body, the shock in those unbreakable eyes, now fractured with raw fear. She tried to push up, but winced, her leg twisting wrong in the fall. Then the shouts hit, main anchor bolts cracked. The whole span could go. Panic ripped through the site, guys scrambling, radios crackling. The bridge, we were mid-pour on a critical section. If that bolt gave... Raina shoved off me, grit teeth, ignoring the pain, staggering to her feet. But her knee buckled. Instinct took over. I caught her again, arm around her waist like a steel brace, steadying her as she barked orders into her radio. The dust settled around us, whined, howling, the river churning far below. She looked at me then. Really looked. Shock, gratitude, and something deeper. Something vulnerable she'd buried under years of command. Her voice came out low, almost broken, the toughness cracking for the first time I'd ever seen. You saved me, Asher. I'm not used to letting someone else hold me up like this. I didn't let go yet. Couldn't. The bridge groaned under us, but in that moment it felt like the only solid thing was her against me. The site was shut down for the rest of the day, maybe longer. Safety inspectors swarmed in like ants, tape going up everywhere, radios crackling with reports. The cracked anchor bolt turned out to be worse than we thought, hairline fracture from metal fatigue, probably from all the wind stress over weeks. They had to shore up the span with temporary supports, and the whole crew got sent home early while the engineers argued. I spent the afternoon in the yard below helping secure tarps over equipment, my shoulder throbbing from the fall, but nothing broken. Adrenaline had worn off, leaving this weird hum in my veins. I kept replaying it, her body against mine, the way she'd looked at me like I was something more than just another guy in a hard hat. Raina Hollis didn't look at anyone like that. She was the one who walked the beams like she owned them, voice cutting through the noise without ever raising it. Untouchable. That's what the older guys said over lunch breaks. Hollis'll chew you up if you slip, but damn if she doesn't get the job done. I'd nodded along before, not caring much. She was the boss, I was labor, worlds apart. But now I couldn't shake her. The feel of her waist in my grip, solid and real. The crack in her voice at the end. By evening, most of the crew had cleared out. I was coiling hoses when one of the foremen waved me over. Hollis wants you in the office trailer. Something about a statement for the report. My stomach tightened. A statement? Right. The trailer sat on the edge of the site, a double-wide container with steps leading up windows filmed in dust. I knocked once and pushed the door open. It smelled like coffee and printer ink inside fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Raina was at the desk, hard hat off, hair still pulled back but a few strands loose from the chaos. She had a bruise blooming on her cheek from the fall, faint but there. Papers and blueprints covered every surface, her laptop open to some stress analysis software. She didn't look up right away. Close the door, Asher. I did the click loud in the small space. She gestured to the chair across from her. I sat feeling too big for it, my boots scraping the floor. This is just protocol, she said, voice back to that controlled edge pen tapping the form in front of her. I need your account of the incident. Exact sequence. I leaned forward, elbows on knees. You were on the scaffold. It snapped. I pulled you clear. End of sequence. Her eyes flicked up sharp. That's not how it works. Details matter. Were you authorized to be on that beam? No, but if I'd waited for authorization, you'd be at the bottom of the river right now. She stared at me, pen stilling. The air in the trailer felt thicker, like the hum of the generator outside, the only sound for a long second. You have a habit of acting without thinking, she asked, but there was no real bite in it, more like testing. Only when someone's about to die. She set the pen down, leaning back. You could have been killed too. That scaffold took out 2 supports on the way down. I know. Then why? I met her gaze straight on. Because it was you. The words hung there. I hadn't planned them, but they were out now. Her expression shifted, something flickering behind the professional mask. She stood circling the desk like she was wearing fitted work pants and a button-up rolled to the elbows, the kind of practical that still looked put together on her. She stopped in front of me, close enough I could smell the faint trace of dust and her something clean, like soap after a long day. Let me see your shoulder, she said, voice lower. It's fine. Asher. I shrugged out of my vest and pulled up my sleeve. The skin was scraped raw, bruising, already purple. She reached out, fingers brushing the edge of the wound, clinical at first, but then her touch lingered, thumb tracing the ridge of muscle like she was mapping it. You took the hit for me, she murmured. Had to. Her hand didn't move. Neither did mine. The trailer felt smaller, the space between us charged like the air before lightning. I could see the pulse in her throat, quick under the skin. You don't get to talk to me like that, she started, but the words trailed off as a truck rumbled past outside, the whole container shaking. She stumbled half a step and I caught her hands on her waist again, pulling her steady, same as before. Only this time we weren't falling. Her breath caught. Hands came up to my chest, not pushing away, just resting there. We were close, too close for boss and worker, for whatever this was supposed to be. Her eyes searched mine, that unbreakable facade cracking wider. I didn't move, didn't dare. Then slowly her fingers curled into my shirt. Not pulling, not pushing, just holding. The truck noise faded. It was just us. She swallowed, voice barely above a whisper. You shouldn't have done that. Which part? Any of it. But she didn't step back. I left the trailer eventually, the statement half-finished, excuses made about finishing later. The sun was dipping low, casting long shadows over the site. I glanced back once. Through the window, I saw her standing there, one hand pressed to her side, right where I'd held her. Like she was still feeling it. Like she didn't want to let go. That night back in my trailer, I couldn't sleep. Shoulder ached, but that wasn't it. It was her. The way she'd looked at me. The way her hand had stayed. Something had shifted out there on that beam, and neither of us was backing down. The next morning, the site was back open, but under strict watch, extra inspectors' new protocols taped to every porta-john. The wind had died, but the sky hung low and gray, promising rain. I showed up at dawn like always, thermos of coffee in hand, ready to dive into the reinforcements. But even as I clocked in, my mind wasn't on the bolts or the pour schedule. It was on her, on the way her hand had lingered on my shirt, on the heat in that trailer that had nothing to do with the weather. I spotted her truck before I saw her, a black Sierra, spotless despite the mud pits around the site. She was already there earlier than anyone, standing near the damaged span with a flashlight inspecting the temporary shoring like it had personally offended her. Hard hat on vest zipped, but I could see the stiffness in her posture, the leg from yesterday still bothering her. She glanced up as I approached the mixer station, our eyes meeting across the yard. No wave, no nod. Just that look again. Longer this time, like she was deciding something. I pretended not to notice, focusing on prepping the forms, but I felt her presence the whole morning, orbiting closer. She'd walk the beams, clipboard in hand, but her path kept crossing mine. A question about rebar spacing here, a check on the concrete slump there. More words than we'd traded in weeks. By midday, the sky cracked open. Rain came down in sheets, turning the site into a slurry of mud and curses. Work ground to a halt, too dangerous with wet steel. Crews huddled under tarps or bolted for their trucks. I was securing tools when the thunder hit, close lightning forking over the river. That's when I saw her heading for the equipment shed, limping slightly but determined. Alone. I followed without thinking. The shed was a big metal box crammed with generators, hoses, and spare parts, the roof drumming like gunfire from the downpour. I pushed the door shut behind me, cutting the wind. She was in the corner, back to me, staring at a rack of wrenches like they held answers. Water dripped from her jacket, pooling on the concrete floor. "You shouldn't be out here alone," I said, voice low over the rain. She turned, a surprise flashing before the mask slipped back. "I'm fine. You're limping." "It's nothing." But she wasn't fine. I saw it then, the way her hand pressed the wall for support, breath coming shorter. Not from the leg. From something deeper. "Raina." She shook her head, turning away again. "Go get dry, Asher. I'll handle—" Her words cut off as she leaned harder, knuckles white. I crossed the space in 2 strides, hand on her arm. "Hey, talk to me." She laughed, bitter and short. "Talk about what? How I almost got someone killed yesterday. How one more incident and this project's done, and so am I." The rain pounded harder, drowning everything else. Lightning lit the shed white for a second. Thunder shaking the walls. I didn't let go. "That wasn't on you." "Wasn't it?" Her voice cracked. She slid down the wall a bit, sinking until she was sitting on a crate, face in her hands. 2 years ago. Different site, different bridge. Material supplier cut corners, bad batch of rebar. I signed off on the specs. Didn't catch it in time. Section collapsed during testing. No one died, thank God, but lawsuits? Headlines. Hollis oversight costs millions. My name dragged through every industry forum. I fought it. Proved it wasn't my fault, but the damage stuck. Clients hesitated. Partners whispered. She looked up, eyes wet, not just from rain. I've been proving myself ever since. No mistakes, no weakness. 1 millimeter perfect or nothing. Because if I slip again... Her breath hitched, shoulders shaking now. I'd never seen her like this. The unbreakable Raina Hollis coming apart in a tool shed. I crouched in front of her, close, but not crowding. "You're not slipping. Yesterday was freak wind and old bolts, not you. But it feels like it, every time. Like I'm one gust away from losing everything I've built." She wiped her face angrily. "I can't afford to be human, Asher. Not in this job. Not with everything." The thunder rolled again, long and low. I shrugged out of my rain jacket, draping it over her shoulders without asking. It swallowed her sleeves too long, but she pulled it closer anyway. "You don't have to be superhuman," I said. "Not all the time." She looked at me, really looked the way she had on the beam. "Why do you care?" "Because I see you carrying it all." and it's too damn much for anyone. Silence stretched, filled only by the storm. Then slowly she leaned forward just enough for her forehead to rest against my chest. Not a hug. Not yet. Just leaning. Letting go for the first time in God knew how long. I didn't move, hand hovering before settling light on her back steady. The rain hammered on, washing the world clean outside. In here, something heavier was washing away. She didn't cry long, pulled back after a minute, composing herself with that iron will. But her eyes were softer, grateful. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For not trying to fix it, just being here." I stood, offering my hand. She took it, letting me pull her up. We stood there, inches apart, the storm raging. "I meant what I said yesterday," I told her. "If you ever get tired, I'll be the one holding it up." She searched my face, something new blooming in her expression. Not just gratitude, trust. The rain started to ease as we stepped out, but neither of us hurried. The site was empty mud, sucking at our boots. She walked beside me toward the trailers, closer than necessary, and for the first time the weight didn't feel like it was all on her shoulders. The days after the storm blurred into a frenzy of repairs. New bolts flown in, overnight welders working double shifts, engineers triple-checking every calculation. Raina was everywhere, pushing the crew harder, her voice cutting through the grinders and hammers like it always did. But things were different now. Subtle. A brush of her hand when passing tools. A look held a beat too long across the yard. No one noticed, or if they did, they kept quiet. We didn't talk about the shed, about her leaning on me. We didn't have to. It was there, simmering under the surface, pulling us closer every shift. Then came the final pour, the big one. The span that would lock the whole bridge together, hundreds of cubic yards of concrete, pumped up high, no room for error. The air crackled with it tension, thick as the humidity rolling off the river. Crews tripled up radio's constant chatter. If this went wrong, the project was scrapped. Careers ended. Raina had made that clear in the morning briefing, her eyes scanning us all, lingering on me for a split second. I was stationed at the mixer controls, down on the deck, monitoring flow rates, ready to adjust on her signal. She was up top, walking the forms with the engineer's radio in hand, directing the pump operator. Even from below, I could see her hard hat tilted back slightly, vest open in the heat, moving with that precise grace that made my chest tight. The pump roared to life, concrete surging through the hoses like gray blood. Everything hummed perfect at first. Guys shouting confirmations, vibrators buzzing as the wet mix filled the forms. Then it happened. A sharp pop echoed from the line, a blockage jamming the flow. Pressure spiked instant. Alarms blared from the pump truck. "Shut it down!" someone yelled, but the valve stuck, gauges redlining. Raina's voice cracked over the radio. "Kill the pump now?" But it was too late. The hose whipped wild concrete, backing up, ready to blow. If it ruptured up there, she didn't hesitate. Dropped her clipboard and bolted toward the blockage point, waving the crew back, trying to manual override the valve herself. Right into the danger zone. I saw the overhead steel panel, the one we'd flagged for extra bracing, but hadn't replaced yet, start to groan under the vibration. Bolts shearing one by one. It was buckling, right above her. Time slowed. I dropped the controls, ignoring the shouts, and ran. Up the access ladder, boots slamming rungs, heart exploding in my chest. No harness, no safety line, just raw need. The deck vibrated under me as I hit the top beam, lungs burning. She was there, wrench in hand, fighting the valve back to the failing panel. "Raina!" She turned just as the panel tore free. I lunged, arm around her waist again, third time now, slamming us both sideways as the steel crashed down where she'd stood. Sparks flew, the hose finally bursting seconds later, concrete exploding out in a hot gray geyser, splattering everything. We hit the grating hard, rolling to a stop against a safety rail. Dust and debris rained down, coating us white. Alarms wailed, crew screaming below, but up here it was just our breathing, heavy, ragged, alive. She was on top of me this time, hands braced on my chest, face inches away. Concrete sludge dripped from her hard hat, streaking her cheeks like war paint. Her eyes wide wild. The site erupted, guys rushing up ladders, radios frantic about containment. But we didn't move. Her fingers dug into my shirt. "You..." Again. I couldn't stop the words. They tore out raw. Because I can't stand the thought of you gone. Not from this site. Not from me. She froze, the unbreakable Reyna Hollis staring down like I'd just ripped the sky open. The noise faded around us, dust settling thick, the river wind whipping it into ghosts. She didn't speak. Couldn't maybe. Just looked shocked, giving way to something fierce unguarded. Her hand slid up, cupping my jaw, thumb wiping concrete from my cheek. "You idiot," she whispered, but her voice broke on it. Not anger, relief, need. I covered her hand with mine, holding it there. Worth it. Below, the crew reached us, pulling us apart, checking for injuries, shouting about miracles and dumb luck. Hands hauled us up, voices overlapping, but as they led her down the ladder, her eyes found mine again across the chaos. And I knew. She'd heard every word. Felt it too. The bridge held for now, but whatever was between us, that had just locked in permanent. The site pulled through by some miracle or stubborn engineering. The span held after the burst. Cleanup crews worked through the night, new hose lines rigged by dawn, and the final pour got rescheduled for the next week. No one got seriously hurt, just bruises and egos. The inspectors called it a near miss, slapped some fines on the pump contractor, and cleared us to resume. But Reyna, they sidelined her. Mandatory rest doctor's note for the leg sprain and stress observation. She fought it, of course, radioed in orders from her truck, but the higher-ups weren't budging. Not with her name on the reports. I threw myself into the grunt work the following days, hauling debris pressure, washing the splatter off the beams. Anything to keep my hands busy and my mind off her. But it didn't work. Every crane swing, every mixer roar reminded me of that moment on the deck, her eyes locking on mine after I'd said it. The words I couldn't take back. The way she'd touched my face, concrete dusted and trembling. She hadn't radioed me. No texts, we'd never exchanged numbers. Just silence. By the fourth evening, I couldn't take it. Shift ended at 6, sun dipping low over the river, painting the steel gold. I stopped at the diner on the way home, grabbed 2 coffees and 2 large coffees black for me cream. And sugar for her the way I'd seen her fix it in the trailer once. Then I drove to the address I'd overheard from the foreman months ago. A modest apartment complex on the edge of town, brick building with balconies overlooking a quiet lot. Her truck was there, lights on in what I guessed was her unit's second floor. I sat in my pickup for a minute, heart thudding like it had on the beam. This was stupid. Showing up uninvited, but doing nothing felt worse. I climbed the stairs, coffees in hand, and knocked. The door opened slow. She stood there in sweats and an old company tea hair down, for the first time I'd seen wavy longer than I thought. No makeup, faint bruise still on her cheek. She looked exhausted, beautiful in a way that punched the air from my lungs. Asher. Surprise in her voice, but not displeasure. "What are you brought dinner?" I held up the bag. "Figured you'd be working through takeout containers and blueprints." Her mouth twitched, almost a smile. She stepped aside. "Get in here before the neighbors think I'm fraternizing." The apartment was all her, clean lined stacks of project binders on the table, blueprints pinned to a corkboard wall. Smelled like fresh coffee and something citrus. No photos on the shelves, just models of bridges she'd built towards, gathering dust. She took the coffee fingers, brushing mine. "You remembered how I take it." Observed. We sat at the small island counter, unwrapping sandwiches in silence at first. She picked at her eyes on the window where the sightlights twinkled in the distance. "You shouldn't be here," she said finally, but soft. Not a warning. "Probably not." She set her cup down. "Asher, I'm 38, you're 24. I'm the one who signs your checks. This," she gestured, "between us? Whatever it is, it can't happen." I leaned forward. "Why not?" "Because it could ruin me." Rumors spread fast. One wrong look on site and I'm the supervisor sleeping with crew. My career, 20 years climbing in a man's world, gone. "And if no one finds out," she laughed sharp, "that's not how it works. And even if, age, experience, you should be with someone starting out, not someone who's already seen too much." I stood rounding the counter until I was in front of her, close like in the trailer, like on the beam. "Feelings don't check IDs, Reyna, or org charts." I took her hand, careful, waiting for her to pull away. She didn't. "I know what I want. It's you." The woman who walks beams like they're sidewalks, who carries the weight of a whole project and doesn't flinch, who let me see her break in that shed, and trusted me not to use it against her. Her breath shook. If this blows up my life, then I'll stand in the blast, take the hit, whatever it takes. She searched my face, eyes glistening, the unbreakable one finally cracking wide open. "You're insane," she whispered. "For you, yeah." The space between us vanished. She stepped in, or maybe I did, until her hand rested on my chest right over my heart. "You really won't let me fall, will you?" "Never again." She smiled, then tired, real the most beautiful thing I'd seen. Her fingers curled into my shirt, pulling me closer. "Fine," she breathed, "but we're doing this careful, slow." I nodded, forehead resting against hers. "Whatever you need." We stood like that, the city lights flickering outside, the distant hum of the site, a reminder of where it all started. The bridge was almost done. But us, we were just getting started. Whatever came, gossip, judgment, the weight of years between us, we'd carry it. Together. Because some things are worth the risk, and she was worth everything.